Hi guys, it's Savannah. I hope you guys are having a great day. Welcome back if you're a subscriber and welcome if you're new. Today I am filming during the day, which is different. I usually film at night, but side note, I'm gonna be talking about Misery by Stephen King, and this is my third video I've done for my classic Stephen King horror. So I'm really excited to get into the video and I hope you enjoy. I'm a little nervous to film this because I mentioned in my November wrap-up that I was reading Misery and I was really liking it and thought I would rate it really highly. And my opinions have changed from that video. And I know that a lot of people love this book and it's even some people's favorite Stephen King book, but for me, it just didn't do it. And don't come for me, we can all have different opinions, right? So be nice in the comments. But I'll explain, but I only gave it about a 2.5 to 3 stars, which I still really did enjoy some parts. But yeah, I'm gonna explain myself in this video. So let's get into it. If you don't know what this book is about, it's about an author named Paul Sheldon, and he crashes his car in Colorado in really bad weather, and his biggest fan comes and rescues him and takes him back to her house. When he wakes up, he's immediately scared and very disoriented and confused, and it becomes obvious pretty fast that she's very unstable and is keeping him hostage. She forces him to rewrite the ending of the last Misery novel, and things are pretty intense. I watched this movie a few years ago and I loved the movie. It had Kathy Bates and she is so good at acting. I love her works. But I think the movie, in my opinion, was more enjoyable than the book. And I'll get into the reasons why I think that later. But I want to tell you what I did like about the book. For me, the setup of the book was really interesting. So all the way through the first chapter, which is about a third of the book, I thought was really gripping. I was really on edge. There were some really intense scenes where I was holding my breath and I really was enjoying it. But then in the second part of the book, this is a very tiny spoiler. In the second part of the book, there are some passages where you read some of Misery's chapters that he's writing, and I just was not interested in them at all. And of course in the movie you don't get this at all. It's mostly focused on the story that's happening right then and there, not the story Paul's writing. So that was something that made this book a little bit boring for me, and I did read all the chapters, but I really have maintained nothing from them and don't really remember what happened in the Misery novel that he was writing. I personally think, though, that Stephen King in the novel did an amazing job showing how Annie was very unstable and really was a character study of Annie, and it really freaked me out. It felt very realistic. Unlike Stephen King's other books that are kind of paranormal and feel not quite as believable, this one felt really believable because everything that happened in this story felt like it was happening in the everyday world we know. So that was very terrifying, and I think Stephen King did an amazing job with the character building with Annie Wilkes. There are major trigger warnings in this for graphic violence. I actually was not expecting it to be as disturbing as it was. This is probably one of the most disturbing books I've ever read, and I will link below where you can find information about trigger warnings and what is in this book. But please, if you're interested in reading it, please look at that, because personally, it really disturbed me. I'm okay, but it was very disturbing and dark. I really loved how Gabby Reeds did a vlog on this quite a while ago, and she said that she lost a lot of interest after the first part of this, and that's exactly where I started losing my interest too. She said that there was a lot of dragging, and I completely agree with her. It just dragged on for me, and it makes sense because King wrote this so you would almost feel like Paul in this situation because he's being captive for so many months, but it dragged a little bit. So I want to get into the spoiler section of the video. So as I mentioned earlier, how King wrote Annie was incredible. I was very impressed by this. When she was having her mood shifts and how she could just be so unpredictable, it was really terrifying, and I did like those scenes. I just wish there were not so many scenes where it was just Paul sitting there thinking, because that's what lost my interest. And it also lost my interest when the misery chapters happened and when he was thinking about the misery chapters. I was really always engaged when Annie was in the room, but it was when Annie was out of the room, with a few exceptions. So my favorite scene in the whole book was when he decided to go out of the room for the first time. I thought that was so intense, and wow, like when Stephen King has the pacing right, he has the pacing right. I just think that a lot of it for me missed the mark because it was a little slow. And I can really see why a ton of people love this book and it's one of their favorite books ever. But for me, I just wasn't as into it as the other Stephen King I've read before. Let's talk about the disturbing scenes. Okay, I'm gonna go through a list here. So, first one, the rat situation. I am a very, very animal loving person. So when that scene with the rat happened, how she was like killing it right in front of Paul and how disturbing that was, and how she, oh my gosh, like I don't even want to say it. Like just everything that happened in that scene was very disturbing on many levels. Like imagining someone be cruel to animals is very triggering for me, but also how she was so heartless and just disgusting. That part just got to me. I was like, they went there, or Stephen King went there. So that part really disturbed me. The second part that really disturbed me, of course, were the amputation scenes. I was very disturbed by them. How he wrote them were very, very graphic. I don't remember in the movie it being quite as graphic, but oh my gosh, reading these scenes, he just like went into so much detail that I probably didn't need to know. Those scenes definitely bothered me and were very disturbing. I think the most disturbing scene though was the scene where that police officer was killed. How she was stabbing him multiple times and then how she ran over him with a lawnmower. Oh my gosh, I did not know that that was part of the story, and it was so gruesome and disturbing, and I just felt like the way it was written, it felt so realistic and believable, and Paul's reaction to it, how he was nauseous, it just felt raw and real. And I understand once again why people like this. I mean, it feels like a realistic story and it is quite horrifying, but again, wasn't really for me. So that's why I rated this book kind of low. I am glad I read it, for sure. It just took me a little while to read, and it's honestly not that long of a book. As you can see, it is about, in this mass market paperback, it's 422 pages, but I listened to the whole first half on audiobook, and I don't know if that also impacted how I felt when I was reading it, because when I was listening to the audiobook, I happened to be a little bit more engaged, so that could have influenced my feelings about the book as well. But I did tab a lot of the sections that I found interesting and important. One thing I want to mention was when she put him down in the cellar, when he was nervous about the rats and also spiders. That scene where he felt something on his face and realized it was a large spider freaked me out because I have arachnophobia, so that was disturbing. And honestly, the scenes where you just heard Annie talking on and on to herself were just so intense to see. Overall, I am glad I read this, and I do want to keep reading Stephen King books. I'm reading Pet Sematary with Alicia. I'm buddy reading it with her this month, and I'm excited to keep reading his works. Please let me know though, what are your feelings about Misery? Do you agree with what I said? Do you disagree? But I'm so glad you guys have been sticking around on my channel for Bookmas. I hope you enjoyed this Bookmas Day 2 video. I cannot wait to put out my Lock Every Door discussion with my friend Bria on Monday, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye.